Good afternoon, folks, Eastern Time. Good morning, folks, West Coast Time. And good night, good evening, folks, India Time, 9:30 p.m. Welcome to the Leader Speak Hour today with Aziz Hanifa, an eminent uh, journalist, editor of repute since long in the United States. My name is Robin Sachdev. I'm the president of Imagine India Institute. This hour is brought to you by the US India Political Action Committee and the Imagine India Institute. It's a Saturday hangout hour every noon we hold. The topic, as you know, burning topic, where are we heading on November 3rd? Today, we have a brilliant set of minds on this panel who will discuss with Aziz, and you can depend upon Aziz to ferret out in his unique, inimitable style, the insights from each one of the panelists which are there with him across the country. Now, without much ado, may I invite Aziz to make his opening comments, and then the floor is yours, sir, with your panel. All yours, sir.
Thank you very much, Robinda. Thank you very much. And yes, Aziz Hanifa, former executive editor of India Abroad, which was the oldest and most influential and widest circulating Indian American, South Asian American newspaper. And today, on the cusp of what some may say is a cliche, but definitely the most historical election in the annals of US history, a defining election, which is going to either bring the nation together after an interesting but turbulent 4 years of private entrepreneur Donald Trump, who came into power in a sense as the president, an outsider, as opposed to some of the established senators, governors, etc., who have been the presidents of the US in the past, and a mercurial person, I may say. It's my pleasure to bring to you today, on the cusp of this election, some of the most influential, most long-time community activists on both sides of the aisle, Democrat and Republican, and also a young progressive who challenged Carolyn Maloney, the New York longtime veteran congresswoman, and Suraj Patel, the progressive, who gave Carolyn Maloney more than a run for her money. In fact, this was his second go around, and in fact, even President Trump kept referring to the election many a time due to the fact that it had to go into overtime, and overtime running into weeks because all the mail-in ballots had to be counted. And in fact, this was one election that the president kept talking about, because he has been saying that mail-in voting can lead to fraud, etc. But we are going to ferret all that out today. And so we've got a long-time Democratic activist, Shekhar Narasimham, the founder and chairman of the Asian American and Pacific Islander Victory Fund, the first ever Asian American super PAC. Then we've got perhaps the most influential Indian American in Florida, Danny Gaikwad, entrepreneur, real estate developer, hotelier, the godfather of the American Association of Hotel Owners Association. Then from Georgia, we've got Narendra Reddy, another long-time Republican activist who's been around the clock and round for many, many years. And then, like I said, we've got Suraj Patel, one of the youngest progressives, Generation Xer, who gave Carolyn Maloney a real run for her money. And the quintessential community activist in the Bay Area, my good friend Jeevan Zutshi, Kashmiri Pandit par excellence. So the format is going to be, I'm going to call on each of you, and I'll start with Shekhar, and the order is not according to any order of influence or etc. It's just that I'm going to call on each of you, ask you a couple of questions, and then we will go into a second round, and then we can either open it out or each other can rebut each other's questions and answers, etc. Shekhar, as the polls indicate, former Vice President Joe Biden is leading nationally by 8 to 10 points. And even in some of the battleground states, in Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, he's up by about 4 to 5 points. Also, the early voting and the unprecedented numbers, mail-in voting, physical voting, etc., had the pundits saying that besides Florida, even places like Texas and Georgia and Arizona, blood red states are also in play. So how bullish are you? Or are you like many of the Democrats still having that nagging 2016 hangover, which Stephen Colbert, the comedian, nighttime comedian, said that is a very real case of 2016 PTSD?
So Aziz, great opening question. First of all, thank you. Thank US Impact and Imagine India Institute for doing this. It's great to have our community disengaged. That's the first bottom line. And it's absolutely incredible to have both campaigns spending time, money, resources, and allocating it to working for our community's vote. We've wanted this for years and years and years, and here we are. So to answer your question, bottom line, polls don't vote, signs don't vote, and the size of crowds don't generally immediately and automatically have 100% correlation to outcomes. I am cautiously optimistic. It is because we have many more paths to victory to get to 270, which is the magic number that you need in electoral votes in the United States to win a presidency. We have many more paths than Donald Trump does. So I'd much rather be in our position than theirs, but there's nothing being taken for granted. There's nothing automatic about this. Every vote counts, and every single battleground state that we are actively working in, Florida, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and certainly some of the ones that have not gone Democratic in years, like Georgia and Texas, are all going to be very close. So it's not over till it's over, but cautiously optimistic. And we're just going to keep working till we can get every single vote for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
Danny, you are all in for President Donald Trump. You, on your own dime, you've been putting out videos, YouTube videos on Facebook, YouTube, etc., including one of you, posing with even a gun, because you've got your own shooting range in your home. I've been to your home, and then you feel that is one way of showing, that the Second Amendment has to be protected, etc. Why are you so confident that Donald Trump will be re-elected? And do you think that you have been trying to get the hoteliers and Indian American community, etc., in Florida? Joe Biden has said that if Florida goes blue, game over. Do you think it's going to go blue, or do you think that Florida can be delivered by people like you who've been so active for so long? Unmute yourself, Danny. Yeah.
Good afternoon to everybody, and thank you with the distinguished guest on the panel. Trump, in my campaign, I did on 30 television stations nationwide, actually, not on YouTube. So very simple. I say, why not Trump? And my message is very clear that I think he should win. I want him to win. Only God knows who's going to win. No Pandit has ever been correct about anything. So I know him personally. I met him even in 16 when he was a candidate. This year I met him twice. I had a round table with him. I had a dinner with him. And he seems like my choice for many reasons. And I think the momentum is shifting quite a bit. And I saw with my own eyes in 2016, Aziz, I can barely gather 35, 40 people to support President Trump from even hotel side, gas station side, or even liquor store owner side. And this year I have a volunteer, and I couldn't take enough volunteers. I have more than 3,000 Indian American volunteers to join to make President Trump win. This is a fundamental shift from last 5 elections, which I'm eyewitnessing, and I'm part of it. 80-85% Indian American has traditionally voted for the Democratic Party. And I think this fake news, media bias, media's propaganda, as if they are running the election against the Trump, I think people realize that they need to fight against media. It's not much against only Democratic Party. Because last election, Democratic Party was right there to fighting. Hillary Clinton was better opponent than Joe Biden. But I think this fight symbolically, when I ask the people, they tell me this media is bad, as bad it can get. There is all kind of fake news out there. If it's the same news, they give it different way. So I think there is a lot to do with the media's misinterpretation about everything, not only one thing. We got the money on time, hotel owners on PPP, they would say there is a deficiency. So I can go on, and we all know it. I don't need to repeat and bore you. And that's why I was watching TV. It made me sick looking at CNN and their sarcastic point of view. And that day I decided to get up and do something. You can fight only media with the media. You can't fight media with the mouth, because they have more television viewers than you can do. So I got up that day and I told my wife that we need to do something. And that day I took a decision that what I will do, I will try to help President Trump to explain Indian Americans, those who are not aware of it, and most of them are not, because election is not their cup of tea, as we know traditionally. So I thought, let's do it. So that's how I got up and did it. I was just sick in my stomach. Every news is a wrong news, because I live in Florida. If you compare with the New York to Florida, the numbers are crazy. I mean, COVID numbers, economy number, people living. I'm a Visit Florida, which is a special body for state of Florida. I'm a vice chairman. 11 years I'm an executive. We couldn't hold the people moving from New York. I have right now 8-9 friends. They couldn't get the U-Haul for next 28 days to move out of the New York. I don't know what's happening there.
Yeah, I'm going to come back to you.
Looking at the trend, Aziz, I think Trump has all the chance. If people are not saying anything beside media, there's no other gibberish out there.
Yeah, I'm going to come back to you, Danny, in terms of both entrepreneurship for entrepreneurs like you, as to how Trump compares to Biden, etc. And I'm also going to come back to you in terms of the pandemic and how entrepreneurs and hoteliers like you have been helped or not helped. Suraj, coming to you, in terms of young progressives like you, progressives who did not come out for Hillary Clinton, do you think that progressives are coming out in large numbers for Biden? Remember, many of them stayed away after Bernie Sanders was allegedly treated badly by the DNC and Hillary Clinton, etc. But is the Trump factor so important for progressives that your first objective and first priority is to support Biden and secure a victory? Is that, or have you all having problems in terms of Biden's moderate agenda and the progressive agenda, where you all want a lot of things, or you all got priorities which you all want to work with? If you can speak to that. Yeah, unmute yourself, Suraj. Yeah, go ahead.
There's always a Zoom mistake. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Aziz, for inviting me to join today. And I'm currently in New York. No U-Hauls out here either. But things are okay here. And I just wanted to say that the number one motivator in this election, no matter who you are across the Democratic spectrum, is to defeat Donald Trump. And so Biden has smartly run a center left or moderate campaign that is actually exactly where the country is. It's why he's going to have a historic margin, I think, on Tuesday in modern history and win states like Georgia, put states like Texas into competition. It's because, people are fed up with having to pay attention every single day to every single tweet to their government, to locking kids in cages and that kind of thing. So I think that progressives are going to come out in and we're seeing it with early vote numbers in record proportions. This is going to be the highest turnout election. No doubt that Donald Trump also is pushing turnout on his side to record numbers for the last 50 years. I think we'll beat those records. So, but yeah, the absolute number one priority is to defeat Donald Trump. And I think that no matter how moderate or whatever Joe Biden is, which by the way, I worked for Hillary Clinton in 2016. And so I don't want to speak for every progressive, but I will say that people are turning out, and people are energized and motivated and excited, both by the positive agenda that Joe Biden is putting out, but also, frankly, to vote against Donald Trump. I think one other thing I'll say, Aziz, and Danny touched on this, I think there's a strategic mistake that the president and Mitch McConnell made 2 months ago. If they had passed a second CARES Act, another PPP, unemployment insurance with extra benefits, right now we would be in an economic position that is so strong relative to the COVID crisis that no one could fault the president. But they made a mistake. We're about to enter an election in the most acute time of pain for so many American families. They should have passed another stimulus bill 2 months ago if they really wanted to win this election.
I'll come back to you on that specifically, Suraj, because of course the Trumpites could argue that Nancy Pelosi was also very adamant in that area that she probably could have compromised instead of holding up for the more than $2 trillion that she wanted. But Narendra, the fact that now they are saying Georgia is at play, and the fact that Biden was out there, and you get even vice presidential nominee Kamala Harris going out to Texas and places like that, trying to get, blood red state like Texas to even probably, which is with the diversity and the immigration that has been going in, that probably is purple today. But tell me, what do you say about Georgia? And I know you've been a strong advocate and strong opponent, and you don't speak fondly of Kamala Devi Harris also. Purdue seems to be in trouble. What are your views? What do you say to the fact that Purdue could be beaten?
Purdue cannot be beaten for the same reason that Georgia is not a really toss-up state. It is every time during the elections, the media converts Georgia somehow into a toss-up state so that they can spend millions and millions on the media. But if you go only in Atlanta, some of the suburbs in the south and east, they are Democrats. But if you go to the northern suburbs like Fulton County, North Fulton County, Forsyth County, and Gwinnett County, they are solidly Republican even today. Only thing is, every time we see this, we also worry, but when we go and talk to the people, not much change. Only thing is, I can say this time, the majority for Trump may be less than what he got last time. The Georgia is a very crucial for Republicans this time because there are two Senate seats are at stake. These two Senate seats are very, very important, more than Trump election. Maybe Trump, if he lose Georgia, he can gain somewhere else, but not this one. The two Senate seats, they are spending so much money and they're campaigning. Originally, Purdue was not really this expecting to have a tough election, but somehow John Asaf, he picked up a lot, and also DNC and Democrat Senatorial Committee, they're spending millions and millions on this one. But Purdue will win, and also in we have a special election for the other Senate seat. That one, most probably between there will be Warmick, the Democrat candidate will be in the runoff, and because there are totally 12 candidates in the special election, it's not on party based alone. It is like whoever comes with the first and second, they will be in the runoff, because nobody is going to get 51% in the special election.
Yeah.
So there are two Republican candidates going for it, Kelly Loeffler and Doug Collins, and Doug Collins looks like he's kind of having a marginal lead over Kelly. But I think Georgia is not a toss-up state. It is going to go for Trump for 100% sure. Because I talk to the people, particularly if you go to the rural Georgia anywhere, whether it is South Georgia or North Georgia, you will not even see a Biden sign there. recently Biden made a mistake is coming to the Warner Springs in rural Georgia, where he could not get any Democrats, but they were all the way when he was driving on both sides of the roads. It is those are the Republicans who are holding the signs for Trump and Pence. So rural Georgia is solid. In the urban area, north urban areas are for Trump, but south is totally for Biden.
I'm going to come back to you also, Narendra, in terms of some of the criticism you've had of Kamala Harris, etc. But coming to Jeevan, whom I described as a quintessential community activist, who's headed the Indian American Community Federation in Northern California for decades, and has an annual get-together and a fundraising campaign. And in a sense, is sort of an independent. I know, Jeevan, that you've been a strong supporter of people like Mike Honda, etc. But now you're staunchly behind our own Indian American Ro Khanna. And you've also supported Republican candidates, you've supported Democratic candidates, etc. Give me your perspective as you see it from the Silicon Valley area, from the Northern California area, in terms of your perspective as where it stands, because some people say that it probably could be a landslide for Biden. Some people say it's going to be a very, very close elections, and it's going to be held up in courts, etc. And which is going to make the George W. Bush election look like a little tea party. So give me your perspective.
Aziz Saab, thank you so much. It's really an honor to share this platform with luminaries like yourselves. One correction, I am a Democrat, but I have not supported only the candidates who are Democrats. I also supported Ed Royce and some Republicans. You know, the way I look at it, you have to see the candidate, the merits, and support them based on that. Who is part of the India caucus, who is supporting Indian issues. That's also a very essential element, when you start thinking about supporting the candidates. Historically, the more important measure is what Americans as a whole think of the candidates, as reflected in their favorable ratings. In general, since 1992, I have been in this country since 1972. I didn't become a citizen until 1982, and I didn't vote before that. But in general, since 1992, the candidate who is rated more favorably by Americans has won the election. The 2016 election was a notable exception when Hillary Clinton was viewed more favorably than Trump, but still lost the election. For months, Joe Biden has consistently and convincingly led Donald Trump in polls. Swing states in the industrial Midwest and Sun Belt appear to be heading Biden's way. And if you trust the polls, it's not a leap to imagine him winning 330 plus electoral votes. That's what I feel at this juncture of the elections.
Yeah. Shekhar, what I know that you've been very much involved in terms of the ground game with the Victory Fund and the Super PAC that you all formed is very broad-based. It's not just Indian American or South Asian American. It's Asian American and Pacific Islanders, etc. What have you all been doing in terms of the ground game? And let's face it, Trump has certainly made some inroads into the Indian American community, particularly following his bromance with Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and also the fact that he stood very strongly in terms of support for India vis-a-vis Pakistan, and now with the China factor becoming such a factor. But in terms of the Indian Americans, especially people, the Generation Xers, the millennials that you've been also working with, unlike the older generation who are very worried about the old country and issues of foreign policy, etc. Talk to me about the fact that James Carville has also been expressing some concerns that even though there has been huge mail-in voting, huge early voting, etc., and that is usually goes the Democratic way, with the Republicans really coming out on election day. But there have been some concerns that the African Americans, Asian Americans, and other minorities have been underperforming.
Well, let's flip this around a second. First of all, I'm not trying to predict any election. I'm just telling you that cautiously optimistic, signs are good, ground game is good. We're holding up in the states that we need to hold up. It's going to be close in a bunch of places, and this election is going to be decided by the voters. It's not going to be decided by the courts, okay? So let's get this sense of dread out of the equation. We are living in a democracy, like it or not, whether Donald Trump wants to throw stuff in the air and just hope that somebody picks it up and makes it a story is irrelevant. There are roughly 4.3 million Indian Americans living in this country. Of those, roughly 1.9 million are what they call eligible to vote, citizens and above the age of 18. Of those, essentially in these battlegrounds that we've been looking at, we've thought there were 900,000 to 1 million Indian Americans, and many of them have never voted before. So I'll give you the Texas data. In Texas, we thought starting out the gate that there were roughly 330 Indian Americans, roughly 775,000 Asian Americans. Of those 330,000 Indian Americans, we had already had 235,000 approximately vote by yesterday. By the time this election is over on November 3rd, with everybody's vote in, we think we could have a turnout of something like 75% in the Indian American electorate in Texas. Almost 50% of it are first-time voters. Again, I want to just say for everybody, whatever party you want to belong to or candidate you support, this is astonishing. This is wonderful for America. This is wonderful for our democracy. This is what should be happening. Look, why the heck are we coming to this country, making money, bringing up our families, becoming citizens, and we don't even get out and vote and participate? Now, I happen to feel strongly that Joe Biden shares my values. We met him 3 times personally before we endorsed him. We actually spent a great deal of time with him and his team after that. We have organized in every community. As you know, and others know, we have organized 2 events specifically for the Indian American community. A town hall. There are about 18 people in this campaign who are of Indian American origin and heritage. There's a vice presidential candidate who's the granddaughter of India. And you have a guy running against us, a president who just uses name calling, attacks people, and doesn't talk about the issues. I think we should talk about the issues. What are the issues that affect our lives, our children's lives, and their children's lives? Who is representing the value systems for those people? And let's get out and vote. Whoever you choose to vote for, please vote. The most important civic duty you have, the most important responsibility, whether you are Suraj's age or my age or Danny's age, doesn't matter. Get out there and vote. Participate in this democracy. And let the candidate win with a big margin so that we put to rest which direction we're going in and can actually run this country and govern it.
Danny, besides the fact that you've been a long-time political activist and you are one who belongs to the maxim of Tip O'Neill that all politics is local, I have come and visited with you, and besides the fact that you are a very close friend and supporter of Governor DeSantis, you also know the local sheriff, the local state legislators, etc. You work very closely with them because you're also an entrepreneur, besides being a political activist. And you raised, of course, a lot of money for Donald Trump when he came down to Florida the last time around. But in terms of the fact that you're an entrepreneur and you're also a hotelier, and very recently in Ocala, you really opened that Hilton Garden Inn to much fanfare. But the fact that the hotel industry is really suffering and the initial PPP has run out, how do you respond to a president who has really not focused in on helping, besides the initial stimulus, you all are in deep trouble in terms of entrepreneurship and hoteliers.
It's a great question you ask me. That initial PPP fund has run out, and it is true. But initial PPP fund and EIDL fund came, Aziz. That's why I have a group who owns 960 hotels in Florida today. And I have every single group member on my phone. So what happened if that PPP would not have come on a time? 40, 50, 10, 20% only, God knows how many hotels who have been shut down. I can really tell you on the ground news, which is, I'm a ground worker. I'm not coming from top parachute. Every week we do one phone call and we ask every single hotel owner, are you about to close? Are you ready to close? Do you know any friend who's closing? Aziz, to your information, in state of Florida, because of governor kept the state open during the COVID, I report you today personally, not a one hotel from my group, 960 hotel, has filed a Chapter 11 or a bankruptcy. And I want to give you a second report. My very dear friend, who has 22 hotels in New York and New Jersey, he personally called me 10 times, and he's very activist. I can give his name, reasons. His 4 hotel has actually bankrupt, and his 18 is in a process to do it. Only one reason. Hotel or any business, Aziz, is only survive if you have a customers or a guest, we call it. If you shut down, lock down the state, how person can come? Second, we have 2 enemies. One is the administrator of that state. I'm fine with it. Second one is a media fear mongering. I can assure you, Aziz, on this show today, if the President Biden wins, the COVID will be the mildest news you ever heard, that there are 329 million people in America. If you take a 3% of that, is more than 9 point some million. Oh, guys, nothing to fear. Only 9 million people are impacted and this and that, and the fatality rate is low. You are safe. Every media I can give you news all 10 different ways. So if you look at the policy, it hurts. You don't look at only candidate. You don't look at what he says, but what he do. So this is where I came. That's the rubber meets the road. That President Trump did what he promised. After that, on a May month, I met the vice president personally on behalf of the Indian American Hotel Owners Association. And I was on a national TV, 28 television station. And I request him, they give me only 1 minute to speak. I speak 10 minutes and say, sir, there is no guest in the hotel. If you give me PPP money, I don't want to hire my all employees back because they're getting paid $600 a week. So they are not on the road, but allow us to use that money instead of ending on June 6th. Allow us to use that money as long as we can use. And to his true promise, Vice President Pence personally met me. I was right on the TV. You can see my show. And he said, I will personally go and deliver this message to the President Trump, and you will hear from us within 2-3 days. Believe me or not, within 2-3 days, it says, tell your group, spend your PPP money and EIDL money wisely because we will extend it. It's just not the date sure. So, Aziz, actions are more important. I have met Joe Biden personally in Ocala. I hosted him. He's the most gentleman senator I ever met. It's not about who's gentleman and who's this and who that. I have read many books, and I saw the interview with the Home Depot's owner in Atlanta, and they asked him, why are you supporting Trump? He said it a lot better than I could say. He said, there is an economy war. There is a pandemic war. During this 2 large war, and then you have a China and a Mexico, manufacturing jobs going. I mean, I can go on and on, the international, national issue. He said, there was a General Patton in America. He was a little infamous for his, talk because he had a rough language. And second, he was a little uncourteous with the woman. That's what I read. I don't know. I was not born maybe. But everybody chose him because you need a general who wins the war, not who talks the war. Trump is the general who can deliver and defeat the pandemic and economy. So if you ask me what happened in Florida, if the economy would have been shut down like New York and California and New Jersey, my friend, I may not be talking to you, because in April month, my economy, my hotel occupancy dropped to 12%. I thought, how do you survive with the 12%? Thank God, slowly, Governor DeSantis, he called me personally and he asked, I said, sir, open up the economy. Everybody has to take care of themselves. Government has a given guideline. This is the only president, Aziz, only president in the entire world who woke up 1 month ahead of this Chinese virus coming to America. He shut down the airline. I still remember so many people came on the Democratic side and say he's stupid, he's nonsense, he's a buffoon. But he did what he can. He can go and protect you if you're arsoning and looting in a mob in a different city, which I saw with my own eyes, and you have no mask and all that. Those are the state has the most COVID cases. Florida and New York is equal to state. Florida has a 22 million. New York has a 20 million. New York has a 3 times more COVID cases and a 4 times more fatality. There is a reason for it, very simple reason. Because you confine the people in a small place and you make them breathe. What is going to happen? Florida is a sunshine state. We told governor, sir, we will all take precaution. We are business people. We're not here. So we take temperature. We do face mask. Whatever it needs to be taken care, we do it. Believe me or not, Aziz, I just opened a hotel on a Monday, Hilton Garden in downtown, which you mentioned. Last night, I had a 44% occupancy. In a normal time, I do get that kind of occupancy on a second day, third day, and a fourth day. So the things are getting normal. So do you want a general who can save us? Or do you want a guy who just hard to remember? I met, and as I said, Mr. Shekhar said, I support both side candidate all my life, including Suraj Patel, who is right now on this panel. I send him $1,000 check. My partner, Manhar Bhai Kakaria, send him a $10,000+ check. You know why? I want our Indian youth, our Indian people to join the politics. I can go on list. Kumar Barve, Peter Matthews, Swati Dandekar, Hemant Patel. I can just go on list the thousands of dollars I gave. Why? Even Suraj has almost, I knew being a political reader, he's a newcomer. He's a young man, a lot of enthusiasm. I met him in New York bar. He has a lot of supporter there. But I knew he can defeat the incumbent. It's difficult, first time. But at least I thought he'll put his name out. And today, because of that effort, he's today on your debate. So our young kids or old people, they must come out and run the election. But remember,
I think the only disagreement then is...
But what you need to see is a deep issue. My concern with the granddaughter of India, she's interfering in my work of India, which is Kashmir, which is CAA. If she's a granddaughter, she may get an inherited right to go and muscle up with India, which I absolutely disagree vehemently.
Danny, I'm going to come to some of the foreign policy issues. Shekhar, you had a rebuttal or you had a response before I get to Suraj. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, very quickly. We fundamentally disagree that Donald Trump has handled this COVID crisis well. Fundamentally disagree. Talk about leadership, talk about character, talk about telling the truth. He knew about this on January 28th. There's a tape with Bob Woodward. He didn't bother to tell us. What are we, stupid? We can't handle the truth? I mean, and 1 out of 5 doctors is an Asian American. 1 out of 6 is an Indian American. Go talk to the doctors. Find out if they got PPP on time. Find out if they were given and enabled to actually serve their patients. And yesterday he stands up in Minnesota and Donald Trump says, you know what, these doctors are over-reporting COVID deaths because they get paid more. What kind of BS is that to be telling people? I'm sorry, leadership involves telling the truth, having character, executing, not just giving big words and saying, I can open your business. If you have a health problem, you solve it. Economic problem has to be solved simultaneously. Sorry.
Yeah, Suraj, what Danny and what Shekhar said are some of the problems that all people are confronting in terms of the fact that there is a fear that a Biden administration may lock down the economy again. But Biden has made it very clear that you can walk and chew gum at the same time, and spoken about the fact that the health issue, the pandemic issue, has to be resolved.
Right.
Economy is to be resurrected. And the fact that there is also a second question that I have for you is the fact that Trump has been just battering away at the fact that Biden is being held hostage by the progressive wing. He talks about the fact about AOC and 3+, etc. How and the fact that once Biden is sort of a puppet, he always keeps talking about the fact that the progressive wing socialism is going to come all over, and he's gone back to the old 2016 playbook, the fear mongering, the scare, the tactics, the economy, etc. First, if you can talk to the stimulus package, in the sense that the pandemic has to be resolved so that you can walk and chew gum, so that the economy can be resurrected. And also the fact that how do you get over, alleviate some of the concerns that even people in suburbia perhaps have, that Biden may be a little too progressive, even though he has said, look here, I beat the so-called progressives and I'm the guy who got the nomination.
That's right. I think Joe Biden has a long history and track record of being a centrist, moderate Democrat, and it's serving him so well right now in that the counties that you mentioned, even Gwinnett County and other counties like that, are all of a sudden for the first time on the map to actually win for a Democrat, because Joe Biden represents the median of the American public. What I think I disagree with Danny on is that there is no economic stimulus. There is no economic growth until people feel safe. Very simply put, you can dump as much money into the economy as you want, but if the demand side of the economy doesn't come back, if his hotels don't fill up at 70, 80%, people don't feel safe to go to Disney World, they won't go. So fundamentally, beating the virus is the single best economic stimulus we can have. And somebody who has managed this country for the last year and utterly failed at doing that has no reason to stand by. Donald Trump says, it wouldn't happen under my watch that we have riots and these protests. It wouldn't happen under my watch that we have these COVID deaths. It happened under your watch. You are the president of the United States. And so the reason that 2016 shtick isn't working is that you can't stick onto Joe Biden a bunch of labels that clearly he has a track record in proving to the American people that he can't be redefined as a socialist. The guy's not a socialist. The guy's a scrappy, Amtrak riding grandson of a Scranton, Pennsylvania worker. The guy is not someone who's going to come in and say, let me garnish your wages. Let me, stop flying, all that kind of stuff. So it doesn't stick. He's going to have a remarkable economic stimulus package coming out, Build Back Better, which will, transition us to a green economy at the same time as creating jobs without hampering growth. So I think that the reason Biden's doing so well in these polls is because whatever Trump says, people are tired of. They're tired of hearing the same lines and lies. He's not Hillary Clinton. He's not AOC. He is Joe Biden, and he has defined himself so well as a moderate.
Danny, I'll quickly come back to you after going to Narendra and Jeevan. Narendra, you've been a fierce opponent of Kamala Harris. Even though there has been so much of excitement and enthusiasm about the fact that she is both African American and Indian American, and one of the things that has probably bothered you a lot and bothered people like Danny and others, the fact she has spoken about human rights violations in Kashmir, the fact that she has been very supportive of Pramila Jayapal, who has been one of the fiercest progressives in terms of, talking about the Citizenship Amendment Act, speaking that shouldn't have been done, about violations of human rights in Kashmir, etc. But let's face it, Narendra, the US-India relationship is almost on autopilot. It's not irreversible. And Biden has also been a very, very strong proponent of US-India relations. I know for a fact that I've interviewed him many times when he used to be chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee. And he was the guy who was the protagonist. He was really the catalyst behind the US-India civilian nuclear deal. And even it goes back to even earlier times when India was under sanctions after the Pokhran nuclear test in May 1998. So why is it that you are so concerned about Kamala Harris and people like Pramila Jayapal, and the fact that some of you older generation are so obsessive about the love for the motherland, the love for the old country, etc. But like Shekhar points out, we are all Americans, and most of the Generation Xers and the younger millennials, etc., are not so obsessive about the foreign policy component. They are more worried about things like social justice, immigration issues, separation of children and families, refugee issues, racial injustice, etc. And I'll be coming to you also, Jeevan, because I know that you are a very strong, staunch Kashmiri Pandit who has also concerns about some of the remarks and concerns on human rights in Kashmir, etc., US-India relations that have been expressed by people like Kamala Harris and Pramila Jayapal. But you first, Narendra.
First, I will go with Kamala Harris, why I don't like her. Kamala Harris is like a Mitt Romney of the Republican Party. They keep changing policies. They keep changing whatever they want to please the other side. For example, Kamala Harris was a very tough on crime as an attorney general in California. Now, not anymore. Now she is in favor of releasing the prisoners and software, very much criminal reforms oriented and all that. But if you look at them, she became a squad member of the AOC now. She adopted totally the progressive agenda. Look at the Pramila Jayapal and AOC, what they said recently. Even though Biden is going to be the president, once he gets in the White House, we're going to make sure that he is going to implement our progressive agenda, which is not good for America, no matter what it is, no matter who it is. As an individual, Biden, I like Biden as an individual, but his policies are going to be not the way you described us by. He's not the same person today what he was 10 years back, 20 years back. He also changed. He also became kind of a little bit, not all the way to the progressive, but at least to some extent he's a progressive now. But once he gets into the White House, like the progressive agenda people are saying, they're going to take over the White House. They're going to take over these administration policies. AOC being a first-term U.S. Congresswoman, look at the domination she has on the Democratic Party as one individual with 3 other friends in the thing. But Kamala Harris is going to go with them because she's saying that she's looking at America, the future of America as a socialist America. That is another reason I totally not supporting her, not because of the Indian comments, because for us, I know India is secondary, but not the primary thing. For us, our children, grandchildren, everyone is settled in America. This country's future is more important, not the relationship with India. But that also is a secondary, is a preference. We would love to have US and India as one of the best friends in the world because they both are a very good strategic, but they can be strategic partners helping each other because particularly with China is rising like a superpower and they want to be the superpower dismantling other superpowers. But these are the reasons. And the thing is, I know people are talking about Trump personality. Even I don't like his personality, but at the same time, his personality is not going to decide the future of me or my children. His policies that are going to affect this country, and these policies are the ones that are going to make an impact on us. That's the reason I support Trump. In the 2016, I was not a fan of Trump. I went in the primary supporting other candidates. Even at the general election in 2016, I went reluctantly. But now I am a strong supporter of Trump because the results I have seen from his policies pre-COVID. COVID is a different scenario. This is a pandemic. Nobody could have imagined what could be the impact of it. Nobody could have planned it. Recently, Biden said that if I were the president, there wouldn't have been one person who would have died because of COVID. It is totally impossible. These are the good things. The things easy to say as a slogan, but as a practicality, it is impossible. We cannot have No country stopped the COVID. Now he's saying, I'm not going to shut down the country, but I'm going to shut down the virus. Tell me, does it make any sense? Can anybody shut down this COVID virus in this country or anywhere? These are the things I'm strongly against Biden. Biden is not the same Biden he used to be. He used to be very honest until he became a vice president. Even first term vice presidency also, he was very honest. I think second term, he changed. And now AOC, Kamala Harris, going to make him go with their policies, not with Biden's policies. Biden is changing.
Yeah, Narendra, go ahead.
Just one thing I will say.
Yeah.
Kamala Harris is going to prove to Biden what Sarah Palin was for McCain campaign. It is going to be a doomsday for Biden because of Kamala Harris. Even among the Indian community, not many people like her.
Not to belabor the point about Kamala Harris, but as you know, you're a strong supporter of Senator Perdue. You're a close friend of Senator Perdue. You've been a staunch supporter of him. Do you think it was, just detestful the way a person who has served with Kamala Harris for 4 years in the U.S. Senate, the way he mocked her name? And I know that they were making excuses and saying that, he didn't really mock her and things like that. And okay, the fact that now you have President Trump running with that, and at every rally he makes it a point to mock Kamala Harris, her name. And don't you think that for the Indian American community, people whose names are difficult to pronounce, etc., and also minorities like African Americans, Indian Americans who both in a sense, have some affinity to Kamala Harris because she's of Indian origin also. Have you brought it up with Senator Perdue and said that you did not like the way he mocked Kamala Harris? Because now you have President Trump running with it at every rally, and he uses this pronunciation. He very well knows how to pronounce her name. But are you having some angst over that?
Yeah. See, we do agree that was a cheap joke that he played at that Macon, Georgia campaign for Trump. We do agree at that one, that he shouldn't have said, but particularly if he could not pronounce properly, because Americans, nobody can pronounce even my name properly till today. Even Sonny Perdue, for example, his cousin who was governor, I know him for 20 years. Even today, he cannot say my name right. But what Perdue did was wrong was mocking it, Ka, Ko, K, and all that. They shouldn't have done that. But at the same time, Indian Americans, if they take so much offensive about this thing, why they are not taking offensive to Biden making comments about if you have to go to 7-Eleven or Dunkin' Donuts, you have to have an Indian accent. And what happened to Hillary Clinton when she said that if Gandhi was here, he would be pumping gas in St. Louis gas station, and he would come out like a man of wisdom. What are those things? See, this is the hatred spread by both the parties, and they have that in their mind. Sometimes it just spills out. They could not control. So Indian Americans, if they have to take offensive, they take it out. Let me tell you, Aziz, by one thing. If you listen to Kamala Harris, even she don't know how to pronounce her name properly. Because when she got nominated, she told people how to pronounce her name with a C, C-O-O and all that. That is not the way we pronounce. We say simply Kamala. But if she became a Kamala, a C with a C, and all these things. So let us not take that. We have to look at the policies. I'm going to look at the policies of a person rather than a personality.
Quickly coming to Jeevan, before we have a final round where we can have an all-in debate of sorts. Jeevan, I know you are very close to the Kashmiri Pandit cause. You've been doing it all along. Do these foreign policy concerns bother you? The fact that there have been human rights violations which Kamala Harris and Pramila Jayapal have brought up, and there are fears in the Indian American community among some of and the Trump campaign has been really playing to those, that US-India relations and the bromance between Modi and Trump that is there now may not be there in a Biden administration, and that the progressives, even though the India-US relationship is so strong, its strategic relationship, it's almost on autopilot and irreversible, that the progressives could start talking about issues like human rights, etc., and the citizenship amendment, etc., which they can bring to the fore unlike in earlier democratic administrations. Are you concerned over this, or are you more worried about the Indian American community here in terms of domestic policies of social justice, immigration, racial profiling, etc.?
Aziz Bhai, first of all, I have lived in this country for 48 years. And for the first time, after, Trump became the president, for the first time, I realized that I was a brown-skinned Indian who came at the age of 23. And now at this age, I have been made to believe that I'm not welcome. Look at President Trump's policies. Look at him, first of all, as an individual, a very narcissistic personality who has been firing his staff any time, any day. Anyone doesn't agree with him, he fires them. I mean, look at the health professionals. Look at Dr. Fauci. He just scares the hell out of everyone because he's a narcissistic personality. If he had a choice, I can assure you, he would take this country and make it his permanent, Trump empire. So now coming back to, this is to answer some of the people here who are strongly in favor of Trump. I mean, I do not like his personality. I do not like people like him who are always controlling others and who want to take the ownership of anything around them. Now, coming back to pandemic, quickly, that's not the question you asked, Aziz Bhai, but, the pandemic, you can just see all these bus loads right now, wherever he is campaigning, and you see the kind of people who are entering those buses. I mean, you can see the white supremacists. You can see, no regard for wearing a mask, for keeping social distance. I don't think he cares. I mean, look at the statements he makes. It's not about the media, how media is telling us about him. It's about what we see him talking about. Now, coming to Kashmir and Kamala Harris and Democrats. Last year, as you know, Aziz Bhai, we were heavily involved in fighting all those campaigns and the, Tom Lantos commissions and all those things. I'm very, very aware of that, and we know that it has been a problem, a big problem, regarding the policies that Democrats seem to have in India. But let me tell you, I would still trust Biden and Kamala Harris because they are not mavericks. They're stable people. And we have already started this process. We have been meeting some of these Democratic leaders. We have been trying to educate them. Even though it doesn't make a big difference to India at all, I think we have this unnecessary fear that America is going to do this and America is going to do that. It's all irreversible. Article 370 was removed and it has been removed. Kashmir has become an integral part of India. America is no one to tell them what to do. However, we do need, alliances. We do need people to be with us. And as far as Democrats are concerned, we have had several meetings, and they do understand. I mean, there has been a lot of disinformation campaign. There have been a lot of things which have been happening, and those things you have to basically go and educate these people. Kamala Harris is from my backyard. I mean, I know her when she was district attorney. I do agree that sometimes she can also be, little different. But I think once you are given the responsibility, once you become, who you are, and Biden becomes the president, like he said last time, I was not the president when some of these things happened. I was the vice president. So when he becomes the president, and as all of you agreed, he's a gentleman, he's a man of character. And I think Trump is not. I'm sorry to say that. Trump has absolutely no character. He lies. He keeps on lying. Every moment he lies. He makes fun of people. He calls Biden Sleepy Joe. He calls names. He calls Kamala. I mean, he just makes even jokes about COVID. Yesterday, I saw him wherever he was, and he says, COVID, COVID, COVID. And what is this nonsense? He has made a fun of, all of us, this country. I mean, in the whole country. I think, I wouldn't be surprised if he goes to court. And if Biden wins, he's going to create all these issues with election and with this. I mean, he's a guy I really wouldn't see close to me. I'm sorry to make this statement.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.